Okay. Okay, we've all done what we needed to do, guys. Huge welcome to all of you, and thank you for making it. I don't know, it's been a funny term and a funny semester. So anybody who's here is a hero. Let me introduce Harley, but I will be try and be brief. I'll do the sort of formal one, and then I will quickly say a few informal words. So this is the kind of formal introduction for the event. Why we don't be shy, come in. Why we kind of thought that this would be a good idea to specifically target, especially students in the creative arts, sort of arts and humanities, kind of narrowing it down to literature studies, languages, but specifically perhaps creative writing students. And looking around, and all I'm saying is creative writing students. So that's very good. Harley, so you know, we've got here undergraduate level 2 students, as far as I can tell, level 3 students. So Rowan, you will have to ask lots of questions because this talk is designed and crafted and choreographed specifically for especially for level 3 students, but also master students in that role doing creative writing. So this is the formal introduction to Harley, armed with her 10-year career experience and not a single statistic to back up her claims. Join Harley for this one-off talk exploring the paradoxical concept of the creative employee and the sometimes unanswerable question, what do I do with my creative writing degree? You didn't hear the F word, I just squeezed that in. Okay, so part masterclass, part prose-poem, part meditation on employability in the uncreative industry. So we're being playful there with the parenthesized content. Harley will bring her appropriately cynical and humorous take on her own career experiences, as well as prompts and questions for you to take. So please, the Q&A, guys, will be particularly important. She might not be able to give you answers, but she might be able to ask the right questions. So that will happen once the creative presentation, as well as the slightly more formal chat about employability will take place. But who is actually Harley? Harley RYLEY is a memoir writer, poet, and accidental novelist. Hopefully you will be able to tell a little bit more about this accidentality. Harley is currently studying for her PhD in creative writing here with an AHRC, so Arts and Humanities Research Council grant. Her thesis writes a radical new approach to memoir writing, both a feminist writing, you put the word down, anti-handbook, which unwrites traditional memoir structures, and the meta-memoir exploring truth, memory, and the bitter woman. I love it. Harley also uses her proper job skills, and this is what she's specifically going to talk to you about as well, from her previous life as a civil servant in her freelance career, providing business development services to creative organizations and offering writing support services to aspiring writers. It's not in Harley's biography or formal introduction, but Harley is also my future boss. When I get unemployed, anyway, that is, you never know, but we're thinking, it's the master plan. We've got future plans to do kind of proper creative writing courses, maybe in the city. So I said to Harley, you've got the experience, I'll just do the teaching, and you've got the business skills to run an independent creative writing school. So she's also my future boss. Be nice to her. Right, huge welcome to you. Just one thing apropos why are we here? We're here because Harley also did an MA in creative writing, actually with us, a couple of years ago now, and now doing a PhD. So obviously we are on a monthly kind of basis conversation about anxieties in general. But within this conversation, as I also have mentioned, I'm so sorry guys, confidentiality, your own anxieties that you shared with me during the months. What's next, what to do, why are we doing this, why are we writing? So I said, Harley, you've got a lot more pragmatic skills than I do. Please help us out here. Right, all yours.
Hi everyone. So I am going to start by, I guess, doing something formal and a bit performative, because I'm a performer at heart. If I wasn't a civil servant, I 100% should have been doing musical theatre. I did cut all of the musical theatre references though, because I thought maybe some people wouldn't get them. So I will do the formal bit, and then hopefully, because we're a small group, we can then do the informal bit. And please ask lots of questions or challenge me. You are allowed to disagree with me. Yeah. But anyway, don't worry. There is no need to be nervous. I have actually done this kind of thing before. I've been doing it since 2015. And from 2015, and for the next 8 years, I've been kind of unboxed annually, like an animatronic Santa, to visit my undergraduate university. They like to present me as living proof that you can actually get a proper job with an English degree. No, really. Wheel me out in front of students and skeptical parents and look at me. This is me, circa 2021, in a previous iteration of my life. I would stand there, black suited, career woman, homeowner, and I'd name drop previous employers to enhance my credibility, unironically quoting the musical Avenue Q. This is the only musical reference, I promise. And I quoted the musical Avenue Q because it has a song at the beginning called "What Do You Do with a BA in English?" And what better way to start a talk about what you do with a BA in English? And the song goes, I'm not going to sing. I thought about it, but I'm not going to. Maybe. So what do you do with a BA in English? What is my life going to be? 4 years of college and plenty of knowledge have earned me this useless degree. I can't pay the bills yet because I have no skills yet. The world is a big, scary place. But somehow I can't shake the feeling I might make a difference to the human race. I would stand there in my suit and with complete sincerity tell the room that I was making a difference to the human race because I was, wait for it, a civil servant. Yeah. I'd end kind of gloriously with, what do you do with a BA in English? I say, whatever you want to do. Rapturous applause, tears, questions about the nightlife in Leamington Spa. What wasn't pictured was my creativity, congealed like washed and forgotten socks, must-scented and mouldy in a broken laundry basket. Not pictured my forgotten teenage dreams of drama school and writing. A family myth told at regular intervals. Harley wanted to go to drama school until her singing teacher said, in order to be a creative darling, you have to be willing to starve. The punchline goes that Harley likes food too much, so she could never starve. The myth masks the insidious truth that creativity was not for people like me. Yes, for best-selling authors in their purpose-built writing rooms at the end of half-acre gardens in quaint British towns funded by their inheritance. Yes, for their warning tale counterparts writing alone in city bedsits, crumbling magnolia walls, electricity bills piled on council tax bills next to a whiskey bottle, and they glug from it and they scribble words in little black notebooks to be found after their death with their diaries, and we'll say how tortured they were. What a shame they never knew how successful they'd be. But anyway, none of that, not for me. Better for me to go to university, not drama school. Better to apply for straight English than dilute my degree with and creative writing. Better to work admin jobs at theatres I once hoped to perform in. Better to stop performing, to stop writing, minimize distractions, graduate. Better to climb the career ladder, get a proper job, a graduate job, the kind that takes advantage of the cheap labour I offer, masquerading under developing more transferable skills and high progression rates. Climb, join the civil service, make a living running conferences, analysing financial reports, budgeting, project managing, trudging board meeting to board meeting, circling back and jumping off, and using up my stinking sock stench soaked creativity on corporate platitudes on the 35th page of a paper no one is going to read. Screw up the tiny poems I scribble on the backs of to-do lists. Ignore the lyrical prose I sometimes think in. When my boss says to bring my whole self to work, smile and say, okay. But it's not better, not okay. Cry a lot, drink a lot of rosé. There is a pain in that which is left to rot. Until mid-pandemic, I joined the Writers' Workshop, a Sheffield social enterprise running writing workshops for aspiring writers. I'm not an aspiring writer, not yet, not out loud, but I am lonely. And I'm somehow writing a novel. And I'm realizing I really don't want to be a civil servant. I meet people making a living from writing. Writers not in garden writing rooms, but online, and then in cafes. They're a paradox, real people on social media, sharing poems and self-publishing, running workshops and making some money without New York Times bestseller status or the whiskey-drenched failure. I want it. So one evening I come home from work and I apply for an MA in creative writing. I'm not sure why it was that moment. It might be that the sock smell was really bad, or that I was realizing that the sock metaphor wasn't going to last for the duration of the talk and we needed to move on. But anyway, I apply, I get in, and after my first seminar with Aggie, I cry. It's not Aggie's fault, just to be clear. I cried after a lot of Aggie seminars, actually. I begin to write every day, tentative poems about domesticity and womanhood. I write an essay applying word frequency analysis to Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons. I pay homage to my job by involving a spreadsheet. Aggie still talks about this today as like my greatest work. Maybe she's mentioned it to you. She mentions it to me every time I see her.
I did mention it again.
It's at that moment with that spreadsheet and that book that something clicks and time begins to pass in these major life-changing vignettes. So I file for divorce, I sell my house, I start a new part-time job, and that's all before I graduate from my 2-year MA. The founder of the Writers' Workshop, Beverly, mentions she needs a freelancer who can manage a business, spreadsheets, and also communications and financial reports and project management and transferable skills. She hears about my career history and she hires me on the spot. 6 months on, I leave the civil service. I drink a lot of champagne. Another 3, I start my PhD. It's about memoir, about unraveling the rules and systems that exist through the act of writing it. There is a metaphor in there. Within the next 12 months, I'll take on my first mentoring client. In this final vignette, I am reborn. I'm Harley E. RYLEY, the unemployed creative, dressed like a children's TV presenter and with a matcha latte in hand. I am unemployed, not as in no work, but not someone else's employee. Unparenthesized, because I cannot forget that my employment got me where I am today and the skills I gained by enduring it. And creative, finally. In the blink and you miss it transition from employee to unemployed to self-employed, I learned that we can clutch our creative pearls all we want, but writing isn't only creative now, it's business. For who can eschew the glittering call of capitalism in favour of a creative life lived off grid, as every month the cost of putting food in our mouths and clothes on our back and roofs over our heads keeps increasing? I said I'm armed with not a single statistic. That is true. I have 3. In 2022, the UK Authors Licensing and Collecting Society funded a survey of 60,000 authors. Of those authors, 19% made their sole income from writing. The median earnings from self-employed writing, where writing was the author's primary occupation, was £7,000 a year. In the UK, a living wage for a full-time job is upwards of 25,000. When I search, do actors actually starve? Just before giving up on my drama school dreams, these were the kinds of figures I found. The difference now is that these figures no longer cause fear for me. They are my fuel. Whether it's comfortable or not, the world is a big scary place, like Avenue Q says. Our society forces us to engage with the very systems that stifle our creativity. The funding we need to survive, the companies whose services we sell our tickets for our workshops through, the publishers we want to print our work, they're all systems. We might decide to turn our backs on them, or we might try to change them. Like my friend, Dr. Kate Jenkinson. So she's a scientist by background, her PhD is in biology. She's also a published poet, a coach, and the founder of the Poetry in Business conference. Her mission is to make business poet a paying job role. Sounds impossible. She has 4 business poets currently out in businesses in the UK. Her belief is that the true power of creatives is in changing the way businesses think by putting creative minds in places they wouldn't traditionally be invited. Kate is proof to me, at least, that you can be a writer and you can have a proper job. And both can contribute to your creative practice and also contribute to change in the businesses that might previously have stifled us. It's definitely not easy, but Kate would say it's worth it. And I think finally, so would I. So I'm a writer. I'm a full-time PhD student, and I'm a freelancer earning slightly more than that median, slightly more. But I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be a bestseller. It would be great, but that's not what gets me up in the morning. Instead, I have that stupid Avenue Q puppet singing in my brain about making a difference to the human race. And to do that, I need skills that aren't about writing, not just beautiful words on a page, not 6-figure deals, not book signings. The practical things like social media, marketing, admin, newsletters to mailing lists to reach the people I want to reach, managing contracts, teaching workshops, public speaking, working in social enterprises to reach the people that need writing the most, running online courses and networking, and getting good at telling people how good I am at what I do. My colleague Lorna once said to me that the essence of being a creative is taking our creative way of thinking about the world and applying it to the problems that need fixing. And I think she's right. I want those survey figures to change and for that median to reflect the immense impact we know we have as writers in society. It's my belief that the best way I can contribute to making that change is by getting in the room where those decisions are made, not by sitting at home and writing on my own, though I do a lot of that. It's by having the skills that get me around the table to talk to the people who are going to make a difference. It's not sexy, it's not literary, but by managing the budgets at the Writers' Workshop, for example, I help them secure funding to grow and to support more writers, public funding. And that in turn provided the evidence for my own successful second year PhD funding bid, and gave me the platform to run my first writing course in the new year. The changes are slow, but they're happening. So if there is a masterclass here, it is hopefully reassurance that your path is not mapped out from the day you graduate or you finish your MA and you make a decision about what next. You can start again. You can change everything in 2 years if you want to, but maybe don't do that. To avoid that 8-year creative black hole that I had, I'm going to leave you with a few things that I would ask myself and still, I guess, ask myself and wish somebody had asked me back in the day. Number one is, what do you want life to look like and what are your dependencies? I don't know if it's the same now, but when I was at university, the question was, what job do you want to do? Not what do you want your life to look like? And I know now that what I want my life to look like is being around people. It's spending my time doing things that both nurture my creativity and allow me to do something practical. I know that I don't want a mortgage. I'm not interested in having children. And so I can live my lifestyle on a third of what I earn in the civil service. But that's not going to be the same for everyone. And knowing what it is you want from life, and there's no wrong answer to that, allows you to build your career with that in mind, not with the career ladder in mind. And then once you've decided that, what's the first priority? Because you can't do everything at once. I mean, you can try. I like to try. But you can try and do everything once and probably you won't get there as quickly as if you just had a priority. So if your priority is a career, then go after that, sure. If it's a house or traveling the world or getting published, that's all going to depend on how fast or slow you take your writing journey. Getting on the property ladder might involve a proper job for a few years, but getting your novel published might require you to work part-time, so you have actual time to write it. Making choices based on what you want first is really important. Number 3, what else are you good at? I know we're all brilliant writers and we'd love to just be brilliant writers, but knowing what you're good at or you can get good at is really going to help you make that kind of creative career. And this is really sad, but the most important skill I have that makes me employable in the creative industries is a tolerance for admin. Or even more that I quite like admin. I don't hate admin. Jazz, who's online, I know Jazz hates admin. Lots of us hate admin. Creatives hate admin. So if you're a creative who can tolerate admin, think how infinitely employable you are. And that sounds really cynical. But if you can tolerate responding to emails or looking at budget spreadsheets, then you're in the creative organizations where those decisions are being made and they're going to prompt the thinking and make the connections. You know, working for the Writers' Workshop for me, yes, I'm doing some of the boring stuff, but I'm also getting out and meeting so many writers and growing that network and finding the opportunities for my own writing too. That's win-win. I think most importantly though, and the thing I wish somebody had asked me back in the day, is what does it even mean to you to be a writer? Because lots of things, you know, you could be a writer just by sitting at home and writing. You are a writer. It doesn't mean 6-figure book deals and being a bestseller. You can make money from writing or make money and do writing, and both are valid ways of being a writer. I know now that my best writing, when I'm at my best creatively, is when I'm working with other people. So I'm not so bothered about getting published. I'm bothered about connecting and speaking to people about what I'm doing. I run workshops. I talk about my PhD all the time. And as I do, it grows and my writing grows and I improve. And so my writing career is built around community. Yours will be different, but finding that and defining what it is to you is a great way to make it concrete and real in a way that my job is going to be writer. It's really hard to convince people. I'm pretty sure my parents still aren't convinced, but hey, we're doing it. I think people often ask after the major life change, would you go back and do it sooner? Do you wish you had done it sooner? And the answer is obviously yes. But also no. Because I think where I am today is only a result of each of those component parts. Each of the jobs I worked at, the places I'm not going to name drop, and the civil service formed a picture of who I am that makes me both employable in the creative industries, allows me to be unemployed when I want to be, and to pursue my own writing. And so I'm grateful for all of that. Plus, my PhD is in memoir, and getting divorced from a magician is a really good place to start. So I wouldn't change a thing. So I'm nearly done, you'll be pleased to know, but since all good careers talks come full circle, what do you do with a BA in English and creative writing? Maybe a portfolio career that feeds your creativity and gives you stability and a roof over your head and allows you to write and meet wonderful people, or something that allows you to make a difference in a creative industry you really care about, or a day job that gives you the headspace to write your novel at the weekends, or something else entirely. I hope you have your own vision for what that looks like. My final piece of advice, because I can't let the sock metaphor die, is this. Whatever you do next, make sure to keep checking back on your creativity socks. Don't let them rot. I know from experience, the smell is very hard to get out. And that's me. Yes.
Share those questions. Are those your real socks?
They are not, courtesy of Unsplash, which is great for all your stock photo needs. I wish they were though. I like the bike socks. My dad would like the bike socks.
You're just saying that. What did you say? I think so. You're gonna be I said she'll be running the school one day. And I said, Danny said the response, I'm very happy for you to become my boss. I'm not even joking. I was quite safe in Harley. There's also something about, I mean, this is a kind of language. That's why I said to my students, come, because I can't talk to you the way Harley will talk to you. It's not, I'm not very good at it, but it's interesting how you're also, it's now, I mean, you are on the HRC, Arts and Humanities Research Council PhD grant, which you like literally sailed through. It's a very difficult thing to get at PhD level, because it's very competitive, but ever since then, you keep like championing over other mini grants, and anything you touch turns into gold. How do you do it, Harley? How do you do it?
Working really hard. I think.
How to get it? Is this a specific? So I'm just thinking of kinds of students. We kind of can't avoid talking or kind of uttering the word corporate rhetorics. How does one learn that language? Do we know what I mean by corporate rhetorics? How do we, I mean, we come from, say I'm one of you guys, we come from studying Shakespeare, Chaucer, linguistics, journalism, whatever, creative writing. Lisa Roberts. I mean, actually, she's very good at language. So how do we suddenly adjust to that language?
I mean,
we are also very smart and critical thinkers.
I mean, I remember the first time I read Shakespeare, and that was an adjustment. And I think it's probably the same thing. Sure. So working in the civil service, the way you progress through the civil service is through a series of recruitment steps that are all published online, literally step by step what they're looking for. And although it is by no means beautiful or metaphorical or interesting, it takes the same skill of interpreting what it is they want and then turning that into a response. And so I I reconcile that need to kind of fit the corporate mold with a kind of greater vision for why I'm doing it. I didn't have that when I went into the civil service the first time. I bought into the regime. Regime is probably not the right word to use, but I bought into the corporate speak, and a lot of my colleagues used to mock me for, I would say phrases like, well, we need to do a bit of blue sky thinking on that. And I would be completely genuine, because I did think we should do some blue sky thinking. I think keeping, like now, I keep that personal and professional distance from it. So you can adopt the language. I guess it's like performing, right? It's almost like I'm using this language as a way of moving towards a goal, not as a thing that I have to buy into, and recognizing that you can have both. And
So it's a psychological
mindset. It's a mindset of, you know, to get the thing I want to get, I need it. The funding application is a really good example. To get the thing you want to get, yes, I might want to go off and do, you know, tell them everything and tell them all the wonderful things and write it in prose poetry. But there's a set of hoops I have to jump through. And I think psychologically, being able to pull yourself out and go, okay, regardless of how I'm feeling about these hoops, the goal is to get the funding, whatever it is. So I'm going to jump through them. And I don't know, there's probably a therapy term for that, and it's probably not a healthy thing, but it's what helps me reconcile that kind of need to push back against it and the need to work within it. And I think we are capable of holding both. It's just, you know, in order to not get drowned in it, you have to be cognitive that you are holding both, the kind of pushing against the system and working within it, which is what I didn't do. I don't know if that made any sense.
I loved your talk. I loved what you said about that creative people can be in spaces where you wouldn't expect them to be, and that's how they can make the change in the world. Because if you are hands off and you let that world do what it wants to do, and you don't get engaged and you don't get involved, there's no way you can shape that. You have no contribution to it. And in a funny kind of way, I do grant support. And when I did the MA in creative writing, I suddenly noticed I was reading grant applications very differently. And now I can tear a grant application apart and tell you what's wrong with it, where it needs to. And it's not that I make it into poetry. It's not that I can make it into literature. I can actually make it understandable because I've got that focus on language. It's just opened up my eyes to how language works in the world. And you can apply that skill. You can apply it to literature, you can apply it to techno speak.
Corporate language, which is amazing. So, I mean, so would be an encouragement to learn 3 years.
I did it with Harley, yeah.
So Anissa is now going to look at why I failed the HRC application. Because I have no idea why I didn't get the grant. Can I send you them?
Anyway. Oh, you did? Yeah.
Okay, let me know. Cool, yeah. That's new to me.
I'm kind of like in a position now where I'm like really kind of don't know which path to go down, like post uni. But I know I kind of still want to do something creative. I'm kind of a bit like, there's part of me just like a bit scared. I'm like, I get into a job and I'm kind of getting an earning that I'll kind of actually find myself like stuck there. I guess like I wonder like, yeah, like what your kind of best advice would be to kind of like creative side going alongside it, or like is it just like experience? Or
I mean, I didn't, but I think so. A couple of things. I think from a kind of moving between jobs and having the ability to not get stuck, something I think that has really helped me. Literally, I mean, I literally pivoted into a completely different career path, is being really, and I know I use the phrase transferable skills, and I know it's sickening and we can all like, but actually I spent my whole career tracking those and making note of everything that I'd done that was vaguely creative and vaguely interesting, whether that's like running conferences or writing. I wrote a speech for a minister once, you know, like all those things were little tiny snippets that helped me eventually craft the kind of story of why I could pivot. So being aware of that and seeing what you're doing as part of a bigger whole and not just like, you know, the next stage up, I think is something that's really served me. In terms of being creative now, for me now it's habit. So I write every morning, not in that like I get up at 5 a.m. and write 1,000 words. I do like morning pages. So I get up and I write 3 pages every morning. And that's just a habit now. That's a thing that keeps pen to paper. But to be honest, I mostly write when I'm doing a PhD, so I write a lot, but like the writing practice is I'll go out for a walk and do a voice note for myself, or I'll scribble tiny poems on the back of my to-do list. But the difference now is that I keep hold of those. So I guess it's like tuning into that you know, while you're studying creative writing, ideas are constant. Like the MA, I was like, I've got so many ideas. It's like it's holding on to that and not squashing that. So, you know, like in the workplace, I used to just be like, that's frivolous. Whereas now I'm like, that's frivolous. So finding a way to log that and keep that so that when you do have time, you make that time for yourself, you've got the threads. I don't know, I'm rambling, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your memoir. Where did it start and where is it going? And is the process of research kind of changing its shape?
Yes. Yes, where did it start? So my thesis starts with an origin story, which is mostly true. It did start as I was getting divorced, and my ex-husband came upstairs and said something, and in that moment I was like, I'm going to write a memoir about this. And so fueled by rage,
It's actually an act of revenge.
it is, yeah, but that's why the bitter woman actually is in there, because I won't go into all of it, but women aren't allowed to write revenge memoirs because that's not a polite thing for a woman to do. So I'm exploring why that is. But now, as I started writing the memoir, I started reading about how to write memoir, and all the books about how to write memoir were filled with, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to quote. So there's a quote from eminent memoirist Mary Carr in her book, The Art of Memoir, that says, if you have a bad memory, give it up, get a real job. So her view is, if you have a bad memory, don't bother. Don't write memoir, just go do something sensible. And then her other quote is, if you're under 35, you should wait, because before then you're still soft as clay. So I was 30 and I have a terrible memory, and I was like, I don't write a memoir. So that's where it started. And then I kept reading handbooks about how to write memoir that felt like they weren't speaking to the real world of what memoir is now, which is this beautifully complex, not genre that involves graphic texts and music and collages and fragments and, you know, explorations of the way memory works. And these handbooks were so narrow, I thought, right, I'm going to write one. And it's grown and grown and grown from there, really. I'm currently working on a chapter about how memory works and how that impacts how we tell our stories based on the ways that our memories evolve as we start writing about them. So it's now a memoir about writing a memoir rather than a revenge memoir, but there's still time.
Why are women not allowed to write?
Started very quickly. Rachel Cusk wrote a memoir called her motherhood memoir, A Life's Work, but also her divorce memoir, Aftermath. And it was called, they called it The End of Her Career because she was bitter about being a mother, which is, you know, an incredibly hard thing to do, and you might sometimes feel bitter about. But she was torn apart because it was impolite and she was rude about other women. And I just think it's fascinating that as a society, negative emotions from women are improper, and there's this sense of like disgust, like she's showing her feelings, which is now really interesting in the context of Lily Allen's new album, which is of course a memoir about her divorce. So yeah, more to do on that, but that's where it comes from, is that I read about Rachel Cusk and thought, I'm angry about that too. Was there a hand?
Yes. I don't really have a good way to like phrase it as like a question, question, but like, how do you like networking? Because I've never really quite, so I know how to make friends, but that feels very different from networking. It feels like, I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's awful, actually. Like I go to networking, Sheffield has a really kind of thriving, growing cultural scene. I would recommend if you're thinking of staying in Sheffield, if you live in Sheffield, kind of staying here, Culture Sheffield is a really interesting thing to look at because they've got lots of networking opportunities for creatives, but they're still absolutely like the worst, most awkward things in the world. So my only advice is like accept that everyone is probably feeling awkward, and have a purpose. Because when I first started networking in the creative industries, I was meeting everybody's interesting, right? All creative people have an interesting thing that they're doing. And I came away with like 10 business cards and then I did nothing because it was too much. So now I go in, like I'm looking to find people who, you know, in my job, for example, we're looking for different wheelchair accessible venues. So I go in, I'm trying to find people who have a venue that I might be able to work with, and that just helps me manage the overwhelm and leave when you want to leave. And also e-networking is definitely more of a thing. Apparently LinkedIn is the place to be.
Is it?
I get lots of messages from people being like you know, like e-networking. Sometimes it's really fruitful, sometimes it's not. And I guess that's just life, really, isn't it? But yeah, I think having a purpose, you know, I think we talk about networking as a general thing, but you know, if you're looking for like, I'm going to network because I'm looking for a work placement or because I'm looking for a collaborator, it's a much, you know, then when you can kind of move on from conversations and mutually feel like you're not wasting each other's time.
So I'm just trying again to think of questions to undergraduate or even MA, but particularly, for example, from the level 3 under the leaver's point of view. So you mentioned that, well, I know because we worked for a year before you got the HRC. So for example, I would want to, like I know a lot of my students love to stay on after undergraduate and go on to MA, PhD. The government is pushing that the piece higher and higher. Even I'm thinking, what on earth is happening? It's just like shockingly ridiculous. So, I mean, you started the first year not funded, and then you got the funding. But what does one do if they want to continue with their studies, say English literature, creative writing, etc., but they're not funded? Particularly in a world where university fees are getting higher and higher.
So I did my, this is not a brag, it's a fact. Sorry, I always feel really uncomfortable when I did my first master's. I did my first master's in education, and I did that, I self-funded that, and I self-funded my MA. And I saved. It was a kind of making a decision and saving. And I guess that's why when I say, like, plan for what you want to do, if you know that you're eventually going to want to come back to study, then planning to work, you know, to work yourself up to have the spare money to save. So like I self-funded both, but my MA was significantly more expensive than my MED. And so I got a promotion at work to be able to save, and saved for long enough that I had the money to then spend, which isn't, you know, I'm not in it. None of us are saying that's a good idea, but that's why I think like planning for it is my advice. Like have that goal and how much it is. You can get your, which I didn't do and should have done. You can get I can't remember how much the loan is. You can get an MA loan. It is a loan, not a grant, but a student loan, which is repayable in the same way as student loans are. But My student debt is currently around £85,000. I'm never going to pay that off. I mean, well, I'm not paying any of it off now because I'm not working enough. But so I guess, you know, I have quite a blasé attitude towards that. I always just saw it as a tax on, you know, it's like student tax. I've got friends who could never, you know, would find that a really kind of anxiety-inducing place to be. But I'm pretty comfortable with the fact that I've taken as much student loan as I possibly could. So my advice would be, if the funding's there, use it. And, you know, in my first year of my PhD, I used the proceeds from my house sale mostly, but also worked, and then rinsed the university dry of every little tiny piece of funding to go to conferences and visit places. So it's like that's why I use the phrase portfolio career. It's like an amalgamation of all the different things you put together to create your experience. It's not ideal though. And I did both my MA and my MED part-time. Did my MED in 3 years and my MA in 2, so that I could work. And it was stressful, but worth it. So yeah, I guess it's that in those scenarios, there's more compromise needed. But again, it's that kind of overall goal, isn't it, towards. The most angering thing is that I had a fully funded MA place when I graduated and chose to go get a proper job. Don't be like me. Sorry.
Well, had you applied for funding at the start of your PhD and not got it first time around, and then, because that seems like a sort of unusual to get. I didn't even know that you could kind of go for it in a second year for the PhD kind of thing. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's up to second year you can. No, I didn't. I remember, I love this. Again, you probably won't remember, but I emailed Aggie in December 2023. And I said, Aggie, I'm thinking about doing a PhD. This was like mid-divorce. And I was like, I've got this inkling that I need to do something. And Aggie was like, there's no time. The funding deadline is January. I was like, Aggie, I'm not trying to apply for the funding. So I had completely missed it. And so I waited. So as not to give Aggie any grey hairs, but also because I had absolutely no idea. I think that was the thing. Like with funding bids, you need a really clear idea of what you're doing. And I wrote my proposal in the June and started in the October. So there was no chance of me having a sense of what on earth I was doing. And by the time I finished my first year and I was putting my funding bid in, I knew exactly what I was doing and exactly what I was contributing. So that funding is hard and you don't always get a second chance. But if it's something that comes back, finding the right moment to apply and expend that energy, I think is a really good idea. Particularly for, you know, if you're looking at, because there are other ways to develop your practice. Highly competitive, but the Arts Council has individual funding pots for creatives that are specifically for non-academia courses and programs. As I say, highly competitive, but again, timing that right. If there's something you want to do that's going to pivot your career or develop your practice further, having a really clear proposal that you've worked really hard to develop is the best way to tap into those funding pots.
Don't write it creatively.
Yeah, no, it's a completely different kind of sphere. Like the Arts Council, so not the Arts Council, the AHRC application. By the time we'd worked on it, all the fun and creativity had been kind of washed away to just the facts of, I'm going to make radical changes to the way we teach memoir because that's what they're looking for. So there is a bit of being unafraid to jump through the hoops. You know, it's like we all do it. Everyone's doing it. It's not disingenuous. It's practical and necessary, I think.
This is going to sound like we're in the middle of an employability sentence.
All right.
So like CVs and interviews, right?
Yeah.
Are there any, you hear a lot about like what you should do. Do you have any advice like what you definitely shouldn't do?
Yes. CVs, I don't know. I think my experience of any kind of application is quite old now. In terms of using a CV, I've certainly found in recent years that most applications don't ask for CVs. They ask for their own application form, so that they can weed out people just shoving a CV in. So in that sense, my advice will always be, I know it's like, just don't, like, what am I trying to say? I was going to say, don't be honest, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is, like, be your best self. And there's a difference between like supporting a team to run a conference and running a conference and leading a conference. And, you know, it's not lying, but it's like, it's polishing. And I think, you know, so don't lie, do polish. And don't go so kind of like factually accurate that you undersell yourself, because I definitely have been in interviews with people. I used to do a lot of recruitment actually in the civil service, and people would be like, oh, you know, I just did a little bit. And I know, because they work for me, that they led the damn thing, but they're so worried about lying and overselling. So find that balance. Interview wise, like, answer the question. Don't. So I've got a picture in my head of somebody who answered the question, would your friends say you're an organized person, with the word no and absolutely nothing else? So don't do that. But yeah, don't over prepare to the point where you can't like answer what they're actually asking you. I think, like, in the early part of my career, I used to rehearse every response to every question, like off by heart. I learned it like a script, musical theatre. And I would go in and verbatim give that like a performance, and I'd make it sound like it was off the, you know, I'd give it pizzazz, but it was learned. And then I stopped doing that when I had an interview where the question was not what I was expecting. And I literally, I had to give my speech because I had nothing else. And I've never done that since, so don't do that.
Did you get the job?
Yes, I did get the job. And you know, I often think back to my acting teacher, and he used to say, this is me and this is who I want to be. And whenever I go into a job interview or I do anything like this, or any time I have to be like me but at my best, in my head I'm going, this is me, this is who I want to be. And just, it's a performance. Like job interviews, it's all storytelling and performance. Your CV is a story, and that story is why you should hire me. And I think, you know, it sounds really like blasé, but approaching it like the story of the best version of me just makes it all feel a little less like depressing and box ticking.
Well, I think the story of the best version of me is a good one.
Because it is all storytelling, isn't it? Like, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, welcome.
Might, I'm just thinking having a part 2.
Up to the story of my divorce. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She is still here, yeah.
Because you're quite different in your
Yes.
approaches, but also Jasmine has got a similar.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, can you hear me?
I can't hear Aggie.
Okay, what Aggie's saying is she's volunteering you to do this, but next year.
No, but what I would love is you and Harley doing a duet.
Yeah,
We're
because there were so many moments where I would like to step in and be like, I don't believe in anything you just
Oh,
said.
exactly. That's what I want. I want a sort of a like 2-in-1 conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I could hear you cringing. Jasmine's worked for one of the greatest poetry publishers for years and years. She just quit. So I was thinking of whilst Harley was talking, I was thinking of you, Jasmine. And I can so imagine another conversation whereby you actually have enough. Do you know what I mean?
The difference is I don't have a plan. There's no plan.
It's sort of sad.
Yeah, we'll sort it. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Harley. Well done.
Thanks, love. Bye.
Guys, see you soon.
Thank you so much. I think that was awesome. Thanks, everyone.